Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, what a week in politics, brought to us by Barnum and Bailey and the Democratic Party. Watching Brett Kavanaugh, our next Supreme Court Justice, go toe-to-toe with these Democrats on the Judiciary Committee this week was classic. It was like watching Mike Tyson fight the millennial barista at your local Starbucks.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children.
Not only did this hearing succeed in proving that Democrats have no coherent argument whatsoever for keeping Kavanaugh off of the Supreme Court, it also succeeded at showcasing how far the Democratic Party has fallen in 10 short years. That party is a mess. Calling the Democratic Party a dumpster fire would be an insult to smoldering garbage. The Democratic Party isn't a dumpster fire. It's more like the cautionary tale that dumpster fires tell their kids. Like, listen, little dumpster fire, I want you to look over there. You see that? That's called the Democratic Party. If you don't make good grades at dumpster fire school, if you don't behave yourself in a manner befitting a receptacle of burning trash, that could be you one day. I'm not sure who came up with the idea of la resistance, but it's the worst political strategy I have ever seen in my lifetime. Their job is to try to convince Americans that each and every day as a country is the worst day of our life. Okay, Democrats be like,
what about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
And they want it to be. If today is the worst day of your life, then they did good. And they are proud of themselves. Because that's the whole purpose, is to make you think that every day is the worst day of your life. All right, La Resistance is built on a tripod of stupidity. The first leg of the tripod is the Democratic Party. They're doing most of the work. They create most of the stupidity. All right, leg number two is the mainstream media, who is in charge of disseminating the stupidity. And then third is popular culture, who is responsible for just nonstop proliferation of the bounds of stupidity. And how about this week? We saw all of that. We saw the ridiculousness of the Democratic Party in the Senate hearings, the circus. We saw the stupidity of the media publishing an anonymous op-ed from supposedly a senior member of the Trump administration, but we know they're exaggerating that. They're exaggerating the seniority of this person. I guarantee it is someone you have never heard of in your life. The whole media is like, oh my gosh, who do you think it is? Do you think it's Mike Pence? Oh, do you think it? No, it's not anybody that you've ever heard of. It's just some career civil servant. If they put a name on this op-ed, believe me, it would die immediately. Nobody would be interested if it had a name on it. Like, the only cachet of this thing, the only reason the media loves it so much and can't stop talking about it, is because if it's from nobody with a name, then it could be from anybody. So, that, is it Mike? Oh, maybe Melania wrote it. Chris Cillizza, Chief McPundit at CNN, actually he actually included on his list of who might have written it, Melania Trump. Then in the realm of pop culture, pushing the boundaries of stupidity, we of course saw Nike and the Colin Kaepernick ad, because somebody somewhere thinks that a great way to sell shoes is to piss off the people who buy them. I'd be happy to boycott Nike if I wasn't already boycotting them for their prices. I haven't owned a pair of Nikes since I was a kid and my parents paid for my shoes. Back then, it was fine for a pair of shoes to cost $100 if your parents are going to pay for them. But, once I was grown up and paying for my own shoes, I never again owned another pair of Nikes. So the full tripod of stupidity was on display this week. The Democrats came up with this slogan after the 2016 election. Do you remember this? The slogan was, a better deal, better jobs, better wages, better future. Now put aside that the marketing team at the Democratic Party is basically treating the Papa John slogan like their own personal Mad Lib, right? Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John. That's what the Democratic slogan is. Put that aside, all right? At least it's a specific slogan with specific plan, goals in it. I mean, it showed the Democrats for a fraction of a second understood where they had gone wrong. Of course, they ended up having to scrap this slogan because Trump is doing great on all of these things. Like his approval on jobs and the economy are higher than his approval on any other issues. It would be totally disastrous for Democrats to run on the economy in 2018. It would be like, hey, are you tired of all those good numbers? Let's go back to before Trump when all the numbers were terrible every single month. Let's go back to those ideas and ruin it all. Even though everyone approves, it's asinine. They had no choice but to scrap that slogan. What else could they do but scrap it? They would look like a hilarious joke running on better economy, better job. I honestly, I would feel bad for them if they weren't the worst. But at least they understood where they had gone wrong for just a fraction of a second. All right, let's take a quick trip back in time. Let's remember what the last 10 years were really all about. Fire up your flux capacitors and let's go back to the year 2008. Deb told me on Twitter that I need a sound effect for going back in time, but I just haven't found the right one yet. So for now, we're just gonna go back in time without any special effects. But soon, it is coming. I'm gonna find the perfect sound effect for that eventually. For now, let's go back in time to 2008 and remember the actual journey that the Democratic Party has been on for the last 10 years. All right, so it's 2008, and everyone in America has turned liberal all of a sudden. Wait, is that what happened? No. They think that's what happened. They like to claim that's what happened. That's a revisionist history version of what happened. Everybody was suddenly liberal and had that didn't happen. Obama didn't win that election by going from state to state trashing Republicans. All right, he didn't win it by calling everyone racist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic deplorables. Obama won that election by running as a very moderate Democrat. I mean, now I never bought it. I knew that was a facade from the very beginning. That didn't fool me, not for 1 second. But it did fool a lot of people. I mean, who was to say? Nobody really knew what Obama's real beliefs were because his career was only 5 minutes old. Right? He had been in the Senate for 5 minutes and it's like, oh, time to make him president. Right? He pulled a Trojan horse maneuver. He pretended to be one thing, and then once he got into the palace, he became something else. Trojan horse maneuver. All right, I'm going to read a quote, and you tell me if you recognize this quote. We cannot continue to allow people to enter the United States undetected, undocumented, and unchecked. The American people are a welcoming and generous people, but those who enter our country's borders illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law. We need to secure our borders and support additional personnel, infrastructure, and technology on the border and at our ports of entry. We need additional customs and border protection agents equipped with better technology and real-time intelligence. Well, geez, I wonder which white nationalist, white supremacist group wrote that. I mean, who is the xenophobe behind those words? Can you guess? That is literally from the 2008 Democratic Party platform, word for word. Okay, that's what the Democrats believed in 10 years ago. I mean, we need additional Customs and Border Protection agents equipped with better technology and real-time intelligence. I mean, 10 years ago, that was the Democrats. Today, it's abolish ICE. What happened in that 10 years to make them think that abolish ICE is really the way to go? All right, so what else did they promise? They promised to reform the tax code 10 years ago. They promised an immediate middle-class tax cut to offer relief to workers. They were upset about the lack of fiscal responsibility in the government. Our agenda is ambitious, particularly in light of the current administration's policies that have run up the national debt to over $4 trillion. They were the Democrats. This is from the Democratic Party platform. The Democrats were upset about the $4 trillion debt. Now we long for a $4 trillion. Wouldn't that be lovely now if we had a $4 trillion debt instead of $21 trillion? I mean, you remember Obama was going to cut spending. You remember the 2008 campaign? Everywhere he went, he would say, McCain wants to cut spending with a hatchet. I'm going to cut it with a scalpel. Ugh. Man, that cadence of Obama's voice. He came back into the news this week to kick off his Don't Boo Vote campaign for 2018. Of course, he'll be going around the country saying, don't boo, vote. Oh, man. All those ums and uhs and that cadence of his just drives me nuts. Oh. So that was the 2008 talking point. We don't need to cut spending with a hatchet. We need to cut it with a scalpel. Over and over, everywhere he went. All right, Obama's worst moment in his 2008 campaign, and there weren't many bad moments, but his worst moment in the 2008 campaign was when he accidentally told Joe the plumber that he wanted to spread the wealth around. He spent days explaining that he didn't really mean it. Now the Democrats put that on bumper stickers. Spread the wealth around, right? I mean, you got Bernie Sanders is a star in the Democratic Party now, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're just socialists. I mean, we have actual socialists winning elections now. And 10 years ago, President Obama had to promise that he didn't really want to spread the wealth around, that he didn't really mean it. You may not remember, but Obama was for traditional marriage. He said, well, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. He said that over and over. You know, and meanwhile, while Obama's going around running this basically, you know, this Trojan horse campaign where he's pretending to be conservative, at the same time, McCain's campaign is a disaster. So Democrats had big wins 10 years ago. But it's important to remember that they Trojan horsed their way into power. They disguised themselves as conservative Democrats. Well, you know what? Trojan horse isn't the right term. I think Trojan donkey is more apropos. So the Democrats' last big winning year was the year of the Trojan donkey. What happened when they got into office? Of course, did not match the talk that got them into office. I mean, if you look at Obama and McCain in 2008, if you went by words alone, there was like almost no daylight between them. So the Trojan donkeys got into office in 2008, and of course, the first order of business was to shove Obamacare down our throats, even though it was wildly unpopular. Nobody wanted it. The approval numbers were just in the tank for Obamacare for years. Massachusetts sent a Republican to the Senate to stop Obamacare. So what happened? They got smoked in the 2010 midterms. It was a red wave. tons of Republicans took back the House. Republicans took back the House. And Obama won re-election in 2012, but not by as much as he won originally in 2008. It was a downhill year for Democrats, even though Obama kept the office. It certainly proved that the movement of 2008 was over. All right, Obama got dealt a pretty good hand in 2012 since none of the best Republicans wanted to face an incumbent candidate when they could all wait 4 years and face a non-incumbent. That's one of the reasons we had 17 or 18 candidates running in 2016. Romney's campaign, in the tradition of John McCain, was a disaster. You remember the 47% comment? It wasn't as much the video of him saying the 47% thing that was a disaster. It was the nonstop apologizing for it. Every show he went on after that, it was like, the host would be like, "Oh, Mr. Romney, why did you say the 47% thing?" And Romney would be like, "You know what, I'm just stupid. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I hope you'll all forgive me for saying that 47% thing." And in Romney's defense, when Democrats say that stuff, they go on shows and it's water way under the bridge. Nobody wants to talk about it when the Democrats say something asinine, like the "you didn't build that" kind of stuff that Democrats say all the time. All right, so the mainstream media is basically 24-hour-a-day PR for the Democrats. And they held on to the presidency in 2012. But next midterms in 2014, Democrats got smoked again. Now they lost the Senate. They'd have lost the Senate in 2010, except for the fact that the Senate changes much more slowly than the House does. Remember, every 2 years, 100% of the representatives in the House are up for re-election, while only 1/3 of senators are up for re-election every 2 years. So it changes more slowly. So the House, the Republicans got back right away. The Senate took till the next midterm. All right, in 2016, we were treated to nonstop Hillary's gonna win news coverage, right? News cycles were driven by asking pundits questions like, will Hillary win regular numbers or will she win in a super landslide? It was like, will Democrats take back the House and the Senate or will they take back just one house of Congress? What happened? Trump won. Republicans held the House that they had won back in 2010. Republicans held the Senate that they had won back in 2014. Not to mention, along the way, the Democrats lost 1,000 seats in state legislatures. All right, go back 10 years. In 2008, 28 state governors were Democrats and 22 were Republicans. Today, 33 governors are Republicans and 16 are Democrats. That is a supermajority. 2/3 of the 50 governors are Republicans right now. I mean, somebody tell the Democrats, stop moving to the left before it's too late. I mean, I would refer to them as lemmings, but lemmings probably look at the Democrats and say, there but for the grace of God go I. Now here we are, 10 years later, and look at the Democratic Party. It just keeps moving left. Their 2008 platform is mostly deplorable to them by today's standards. They had to ditch the better deal, better jobs, better wages slogan because it makes no sense. They had their chance to do those things and they failed miserably. And now President Trump and the Republicans are actually accomplishing what's in that slogan. All right? So the Democrats come up with a new slogan, for the people. Talk about your empty platitude. What are you promising to do? I don't know, but whatever we do, we'll do it for the people. That doesn't even mean anything. That is nothing. That is like the emptiest of empty platitudes. That is emptier than the platitude of hope and change. For the people. Can you imagine having to ditch better jobs, better wages for the people? Their slogan should actually be, the end is near. And they should print it on sandwich boards and walk through the streets ringing a bell. They are the apocalypse party. They're the kamikaze party desperately trying to crash themselves into Trump's agenda every day because they don't know what else to do. Remember, each and every day is the worst day of our lives because Trump is president.
What about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
If you listen to the Democrats, we face more apocalyptic events on a daily basis than the brothers from Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer combined. What this is just bottom-up narrative building where an audience demands apocalyptic, anti-Trump narratives, and that is precisely what they get. Right? This is bottom up. It's coming from the people who have a scream at the sky day, or the people who scream in the Senate chamber during Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing. Those are the people making decisions. That's the decision makers in the Democratic Party. It goes from the bottom up. Instead of smart people who work at the DNC, I mean, there's nobody I'm sure that smart, but people who work at the DNC saying, okay, we need some good ideas. They just let it go from the bottom up. Whatever somebody screams, that's their official platform. If you scream something loud enough, the Democrats will adopt it. I mean, where in the world else does abolish ICE come from? Except for somebody screamed it really loud, so the Democrats snatched it up and jammed it in their platform. You know, the Democratic platform now is just a collage of nonsense people screamed. It's a kaleidoscope of the incoherent. But it pays off, right? For the Democratic Party, it pays off with voter enthusiasm. That's what they're after, enthusiasm. That's why you take what people scream and you make it your policy. Because that's who you want to make happy, the loudest screamers. All right, for the mainstream media, their payoff comes in clicks, right? People click on all those anti-Trump art. They just jam Trump's name into every headline, you know, so that people will want to read it. Nobody wants to read anything that's not about Trump, right? Some random GOP congressman gets indicted, and they just jam Trump's name into the headline, even though it literally has zero to do with him. That's just how they roll now, because Trump sells the news now. A perfect example is the collusion hoax. You remember Russian collusion? Nobody believes in that anymore. Check Google Trends. A year ago, it was a massively popular search. People were searching like crazy for Russian collusion. That was a popular search term. Now, it's totally dead, but at the time, the media pushed it as hard as they possibly could. I mean, Trump-Russia bombshell stories they didn't even know it, but they were journalistic kryptonite. And the quest to become Woodward and Bernstein produced a bungling bunch of Ron Burgundies retracting stories or being suspended and demoted, and in some cases, even being fired from their jobs for getting it wrong.
No, wait, let me say something.
Remember net neutrality? We got rid of the net neutrality rules. That was the end of the world. You're going to have to pay for everything on the internet now. Remember that ultra-viral tweet? I mean, this tweet was everywhere. It said, Twitter, $14.99 per month. Snapchat, $9.99 per month. YouTube, $19.99 per month. Netflix, $10 per movie. Google, $2 per search. If you don't want to pay extra for your favorite sites, you need to be supporting net neutrality. Swing and a miss on that one. It wasn't the end of the world. Oh my gosh, who knew? I mean, that particular piece of hysteria did not exactly age like wine. It aged like a fine milk stored at room temperature. That's what happens when hysteria trumps third grade level logic. But remember, Agent Pie was getting death threats because hysterical snowflakes thought they were going to have to pay for YouTube. CNN called getting rid of the net neutrality rules, they called that the end of the internet as we know it. That's like calling the cancellation of Two Broke Girls the end of TV as we know it. Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, that was the end of the world. Tax cuts, you remember what Nancy Pelosi called the tax cuts.
This is Armageddon.
End of the world. Trump rescinded DACA, end of the world. This week, it became clear that the closer we get to the 2018 midterms, the more insane the Democratic Party becomes. All right? They're lucky there's no 25th Amendment solution to depose a political party because it would have to be used here. That's another thing to add to the insanity this week from Democrats. Elizabeth Warren said, oh, the 25th Amendment, it's time to use the 25th Amendment. Okay, if you're not familiar with the 25th Amendment, in order to depose the president, get rid of the president, give the job to the vice president, it requires to be on board the vice president of the United States and 8 cabinet members. So, good luck with that one, Elizabeth Warren. Honestly, pretty much anytime you hear anyone talk about invoking the 25th Amendment, you can just stop listening. Like, that is not happening unless the president, God forbid something horrible happens to the president and he really is incapacitated. That is the only time the 25th Amendment is going to be invoked. Right? People aren't just going... The president's own cabinet and vice president are not going to overthrow him just because the news cycle is boring that week. That's not going to happen. Frankly, anybody who suggests using the 25th Amendment in a sinister way like that, I mean, they should be totally banished by the voters from public life. That should say to everyone in this country, no matter Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. That should say to everyone, this person is not responsible enough to hold an important position. I mean, Obama was a nightmare. You know how many times I heard any conservative, no matter how much they disliked Obama, you know how many times I heard any conservative in the media invoke the 25th Amendment? 0. I mean, maybe it happened somewhere. I literally never heard it. Now I hear it from Democrats all the time. Totally crazy. You should be banished by the voters from holding public office if you suggest using the 25th Amendment in a sinister way. That is not what it's for. All right, obviously, Brett Kavanaugh is a perfectly qualified choice for the Supreme Court. He's excellent. He wants to judge cases according to faithful interpretations of the law and the Constitution. The Constitution, or as Kamala Harris calls it, that book you carry around. No joke, that's how Kamala Harris referred to Brett Kavanaugh's pocket constitution. That book you carry around. And the worst part is, that's like the smartest thing a Democrat has said all week long. All right? The hearings could barely be held for Judge Kavanaugh because every 10 seconds, a member of the Democratic apocalypse cult started screaming and had to be forcibly removed from the room. All right, there was something like 70 arrests the first day of the hearing. Blumenthal, Harris, Booker, and the rest of the Democratic senators rejected the rules of order in favor of histrionic grandstanding. Cory Booker called himself Spartacus. I am Spartacus. Oh, man, this was the funniest story of the week. This was ridiculous. He made a big show of how he was breaking the Senate rules, but it was for the people, right? He goes full on Tale of Two Cities, right? He's saying how he's going to break the rules and sacrifice himself. And he thinks, America sees him like Tale of Two Cities. 'Tis a far better thing I do now than I have ever done before. Oh, so he's going to break the rules and get kicked out of the Senate. He doesn't care. It's for the people. He is Spartacus. Jump cut to that afternoon. It turns out he wasn't breaking the rules, and he knew it. And not only did he know it, he even said 30 minutes later that he knew it. Check out this from Cory Booker. Check out this inconsistency.
How long do you want?
I'm saying I'm knowingly violating the rules.
Okay.
Senator Cornyn called me out for it.
How many times you learn? Tell us,
sir. I'm saying right now that I'm releasing committee confidential documents.
Mr. Chairman, since the senator.
Mr. Chairman.
So some pretty big talk here. Cory Booker was like basically, hey, I'm Spartacus. I'm breaking this rule. You can throw me out of the Senate. I don't care. I'm Spartacus. Then 30 minutes later, here he is.
There is no Senate rule that accounts for this process, period. This is not a Senate rule. I did not violate a Senate rule.
Jump cut to that night, and he's back on the news saying he broke the rules. He might as well just look into the cameras and say, please pay attention to me. Please notice me. I'm here. Please. Chris Cillizza, who I talked about at the beginning of the show for something else ridiculous, I refer to him as McPundit because he serves up super low quality political analysis, but he serves it up fast. So Cillizza wrote this super dramatic opinion piece to try to lionize Booker. And it says at the end of the opinion piece, it's like, what Booker did with clear intent on Thursday morning was to show he's not going to be cowed by the rules of the Senate or by a bully. He's going to say, bring it, and get ready to scrap. And then right underneath that ending, it says, update. This story has been updated with a response from Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley's office disputing Booker's portrayal of his document release as breaking the Senate rules. Nice. And let me add to the CNN update. Booker disputed Booker's portrayal, if you remember from the clip I played a minute ago. So why did Democrats abandon the Trojan donkey tactic that they were using 10 years ago? Democrats pretending they care about fiscal responsibility. Democrats pretending to revere the Constitution even though they think it's a living, breathing document whose statute of limitations ran out some time ago. Democrats pretending they care about border security. That worked. Those are all things that Americans care about, you see? Instead, Democrats are embracing their ultra-radical base, right? The people who scream at a committee hearing. They're showing America what they're really all about. They're like that person you date who seems super cool and great for the first few months, and then the facade becomes too much for them to keep up, and it starts to crumble away, and you can see that they're really not what they seemed. Right? Then a few months later, the facade is totally gone and you're panicking. Life suddenly becomes like that scene from Top Gun where Maverick is trying to eject from the plane, but he can't reach to eject. Oh. So Grinnell College released a likely voter poll this week. I've been waiting for this. Right now, most of the polls are registered voter polls. Those are always way better for Democrats. And I'm not just saying that. Any expert will tell you that that is true. All right, Nate Silver at 538 points that same thing out all the time. Larry Sabato knows that that's true and has pointed it out before. So this new poll from Grinnell, this is one of the first likely voter polls. It has the generic congressional race at Democrats +2. In the registered voter polls we've seen over and over, they've varied a lot, but we've been seeing Democrats +12, Democrats +14. If this new poll is right, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying there aren't very many likely voter polls, and this is one of them, and it says Democrats +2. It's just one poll, but if this poll is right, Democrats are going to be in for another heartbreaker. Maybe they'll learn from it this time. All right, that's it for today. Please subscribe on iTunes. Please leave a review on iTunes. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. I had a blast. That's it. I'm out of here.
My style is impetuous.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com and please subscribe.